forgive. We are taught from a young age that it's not healthy to hold a grudge, that the right thing to do is to forgive. But what does that mean? Merriam-Webster defines forgive as to cease to feel resentment against an offender. Pardon, forgive one's enemies. To grant forgiveness, had to learn to forgive and forget. Given Webster's definition of forgive, forgiving is a tall order. No wonder it's so hard for people to forgive. I've battled with forgiving for the past 6 years. It began on November 29th, 2013, when I discovered my husband of 17 years was living a double life. At home, he was my husband, lover, father, and best friend. Away, he morphed into men's gay lovers, a drug user, and an abuser of alcohol. I was blindsided. One man with 2 lives. The shock of learning this reality, this betrayal, was unbearable. As my husband confessed, tears rolling down his face, I listened to his disclosure of lies and deceit as anger and rage boiled from within me. As he said, "I'm so sorry," over and over, I screamed, "Oh my God, I want a divorce. How could you?" Words just continued flowing as emotions consumed me. I didn't recognize this man who I thought was my husband. And in this moment, I did not recognize me. I am not a woman of rage. But in this exact moment, I needed to feel and honor my sadness, rage, and loss, because those were the real and raw emotions coursing through me. After all, look at what he did to me. I also had to face fear. A lot of fear. I feared I would be judged, gossiped about, and ostracized, and that people wouldn't want to be my friend. I feared I would ruminate in toxic anger, rage, and sadness, eventually becoming that unhappy, angry woman who had lost her marriage and lost herself. And losing myself would have been the biggest loss of all. The thing is, being in this challenging place of a victim who did not want the hurt was a somewhat familiar place to me. Earlier in my life, I had been a victim of sexual assault. And while at first I was practiced at accepting the shame, guilt, and responsibility for things that weren't mine, I eventually realized those feelings were toxic and making me sick. And while I would never forget nor condone the action, I needed to be free of the toxicity. I imagined myself letting go of the hurt and unloving feelings living inside of me, just scooping them out and watching them drift away. This was personal and internal, but it was powerful and it worked because I wanted it to work. But that was then, and this was now. Somehow this time I just couldn't do it. Was it that now there were kids involved? Or that we were ingrained in our local community and everyone knew us? Or that we seemed to be the family that had it together? Whatever it was, I just couldn't rid myself of the toxicity taking over my brain, my heart, and my body. I lost my appetite and a lot of weight. I became short-tempered with my children, isolated with my emotions, while holding on to a secret that my life pretty much sucked. I was no longer living in my values as a woman, a partner, or mother. This was the price I paid for letting these feelings dwell and even grow within me. Once again, I was morphing into a woman I did not recognize or like. But then, one day in September, almost a year after my life changed forever, I was hiking with friends in Sequoia National Park. I was standing on a rock high above this valley floor below, taking in the beauty, when unexpectedly I felt this welcoming, deep sensation. For a second, I was conscious of what it would feel like if I could let my anger, betrayal, and resentment just release away, and it felt so free. I wanted this feeling to last forever. In that moment, I realized I didn't want to hold on to this pain anymore. It was not serving me. It was harming me. So I went home to see my support group and therapist because I am not a superhero, and I was smart enough to realize that I couldn't do this alone. And after a lot of hard work, just as I had done long before, I decided I was finally ready to face my offenders one by one. I started with my husband. Now my turn to speak. I told him, I can no longer be your curtain to hide behind. I give you permission to come out and live your life. I faced friends who knew about my husband's drug problems. I faced many of his lovers, who in some cases were our mutual friends. And each time I shared how their actions festered within me, and it was time for that to end. I would say, what you did was wrong, and it hurt me, and I didn't do anything to deserve this pain. And it's not fair that I now have these toxic feelings living inside of me. I will always remember what happened because that is truth, but I refuse to let this hurt stay inside of me. Here are all of the feelings that have been living inside of me. They are not good for me. They do not belong to me. I forgive you and harbor no ill will. The thing is, my forgiveness was balanced, offering me true freedom while not standing in the way of my perpetrator and a clear conscience. When I forgive, I am ready to. I feel this release of all these toxic emotions that have riddled my body with mental and physical aches and pains. But let me be clear. Offering perpetrators a clear conscience is not a pardon or a way to excuse their behavior. But I refuse to let their transgressions and all the hurt that comes with it into my life. When people find it hard to believe that I can forgive my ex-husband and others, I ask them what forgiving means to them. Their definition is usually something similar to Webster's definition. But when I share how I define forgiving, which considers the victim, they begin to understand. No doubt, this is hard stuff. I work on forgiving every day. It's sort of like a 12-step program. I will be on this forgiveness journey for the rest of my life. And sometimes I fall off the wagon. I'm not perfect, and when I get mad, I get mad. Toxic feelings begin to creep in. But I know how good it feels to not hold anger, betrayal, and resentment in my heart. So every day, I make a choice to keep forgiving. It is a lot of hard work, but the results are worth it. I feel more free than I have ever felt in my entire life. Thank you. Which reminds me, I actually have one more person to forgive. Dear Merriam-Webster, your definition of forgive has caused so much pain for victims and greatly delays their ability to heal. Forgetting makes it seem like the hurt didn't happen, which only re-victimizes victims. Pardoning an act thought to correct injustices in the judicial system doesn't seem appropriate either. I urge you to change your definition to highlight the process of forgiving and what is required on the part of the victim. My suggestion is forgive, to acknowledge an offense and the consequences of that offense as truth, to choose to let go of negative feelings, and to cease to harbor animosity towards the offender. With this definition, may victims find freedom and peace. I forgive you. Yours sincerely, Sara.